Texas Republicans could come back and reconsider the law in a special session, but the extraordinary measures taken by the state Democrats reflects the extraordinary damage of the voting law. Texas Republicans were on the verge of passing several alarming restrictions, reducing polling hours, eliminating drive-through voting in 24-hour voting centers. The proposed law would have made it easier for a judge to overturn an election and pushed back the start of Sunday voting, a measure that seemed designed to interfere with voting drives held by black churches. Texas already has some of the strictest voting procedures in the country. The additional effort, in the wake of Donald Trump's big lie, directly targets all the ways poorer, younger, non-white, and typically Democratic voters cast their ballots. Of course, Texas is only the most recent flashpoint in the nationwide effort by Republican legislators to contract Americans' right to vote, as you well know, Mr. President. The tide of Republican voter suppression laws is a direct assault on our democracy and could disenfranchise tens of millions of Americans. Today, I'm proud to say at the Democratic Caucus lunch, we will host the group of Texas Democrats who bravely fought the voter suppression law in their state. The topic of our discussion will be about how to come together to protect voting rights, not just in Texas, but across the country. Next week, the Senate will consider major voting rights legislation. Congress must take action to defend our democracy. Now on the President's foreign trip. President Biden's first foreign trip has projected a welcome sight to the world, an American president embracing our allies and bringing them together to confront our common adversaries. Already, the President's visit to G7 has yielded results, a commitment to counter China's rapacious economic policies and unwinding a long-standing dispute over tariffs and trade with the European Union. Now, after meeting with our allies at both the G7 and at the NATO summit in Brussels, the President will meet tomorrow with Vladimir Putin. From the occupation in Crimea, to violating political and human rights within its own borders, to interfering in democratic elections across the Western world, to imprisoning those that expose his brutal, undemocratic regime, Vladimir Putin has spent the past decade interfering and destabilizing the world order. And for 4 years, former President Trump turned a blind eye and gave Putin a free pass. In the history of our country, Americans have never seen a president of the United States support an adversary the way Trump supported President Putin on that stage in Helsinki nearly 3 years ago. We all remember President Trump standing next to Vladimir Putin and taking the word of a Russian intelligence officer over America's intelligence agencies. Trump not only defended Putin repeatedly from accusations of election interference, he actually announced, if you can believe this, stranger than fiction, that the U.S. and Russia would set up a joint cybersecurity unit. Even Senator Graham said that, quote, it wasn't the dumbest idea he ever heard, but it was close, unquote. Now, President Biden must take the exact opposite approach. The U.S. must approach Vladimir Putin with a firm hand and demand accountability in a way that President Trump never did. I expect President Biden will do exactly that. One issue I'm particularly concerned about is cybersecurity and the rise of ransomware attacks on the critical infrastructure in the United States. Many of those cyber criminals, unsurprisingly, may be hiding out in Putin's Russia or potentially connected to Putin's intelligence agencies. Here at home, I've called on Congress to significantly boost funding for our cyber fighting agencies and asked our Senate committees to study if we need new legislation to help counter the threat of cyber attacks. Abroad, President Biden has an opportunity to pressure Putin directly to put an end to Russian-supported cybercrime. I expect he will. The President has smartly made these issues a priority among our NATO allies, announcing a host of joint actions to combat cybercrime, harden our cybersecurity, and condemn Russian aggression in the cyberspace. It's time to take the issue directly to Vladimir Putin himself. For 4 years, President Trump berated our allies while emboldening and sometimes embracing the world's dictators and autocrats, Vladimir Putin above all. Already, President Biden's first foreign trip is a welcome turn of the page in America's relationship with the world. Finally, one final matter, QAnon. Last December, I joined with Senator Heinrich and other Democrats to ask the FBI and DHS to provide a written assessment on the dangers posed by the online conspiracy group QAnon. They recently responded to our request with a very sobering assessment. The threat of QAnon is likely to persist, and the current environment will likely to continue to spur QAnon adherents to see violence as a legitimate course of action. The assessment also expresses that QAnon adherents and domestic violent extremists will likely shift from acting digitally to engaging in real-world violence. That is a shot across our bow. That's a warning signal. QAnon today is perhaps best known for the role it played in inspiring many of the rioters who assaulted the U.S. Capitol on January the 6th. According to the FBI's assessment, they arrested 20 self-identified adherents who participated in the insurrection. But even before the horrific events on January the 6th, QAnon supporters spread disinformation that amplified hatred and violence and threatened our democratic institutions. The past 4 years have seen a notable increase in violent domestic terrorism, fed by a host of lies and conspiracies that flourished under the Trump era. This assessment by the FBI is a stark reminder that we have a lot of work to do to tamp down conspiracy theories and disinformation, as well as monitoring and thwarting violent domestic extremists. And to my Republican Senate colleagues, I would add that this report further strengthens the argument for an independent January 6th commission. I yield the floor.